The unspoken rule of detachment. Why the 1% don't chase outcomes. The paradox that builds empires. What if I told you that the most successful people on earth achieve their greatest victories by caring less about winning? What if the billion-dollar entrepreneurs, world-class athletes, and cultural icons operate by a psychological principle so counterintuitive that it would destroy everything you believe about success and achievement? Here's the mind-bending truth that separates the 1% from everyone else. While you're obsessing over outcomes, tracking every metric, and desperately chasing results, the ultra-successful have mastered the art of detachment. They achieve more by wanting less. They win bigger by caring less about winning. They create wealth by releasing attachment to money. This isn't spiritual nonsense. This is hardcore psychology backed by decades of research on peak performance and decision-making. We're talking about titans like Warren Buffett, who makes billion-dollar investments with emotional detachment that borders on indifference. Athletes like Michael Jordan, who performed his greatest feats by entering flow states where the outcome became irrelevant. Entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos, who built Amazon by focusing obsessively on process while remaining detached from quarterly results. Artists like Bob Dylan, who created his masterpieces by releasing attachment to commercial success. In the next 43 minutes, I'm going to expose the psychological mechanism that the 1% use to achieve extraordinary results while everyone else burns out chasing outcomes they'll never reach. You'll discover why attachment to results actually prevents success, how detachment unlocks peak performance, and why this counterintuitive principle is the secret operating system of every high achiever you admire. If you've been grinding toward goals without seeing proportional results, if you're exhausted by the constant pressure to achieve, or if you want to understand what actually creates breakthrough performance, prepare to have your understanding of success completely revolutionized. The attachment trap that destroys success. Let me start by destroying the foundation of modern achievement culture with psychological research that will make your goal-setting obsession feel like self-sabotage. The paradox of control: the harder you try to control outcomes, the less control you actually have. Psychology research shows that outcome attachment creates anxiety, which narrows attention and reduces creative problem-solving ability. When you're desperately attached to a specific result, your brain shifts into threat detection mode, making you less likely to see opportunities and solutions. The 1% understand that maximum influence comes through minimum attachment to specific outcomes. The performance anxiety spiral. Athletes and performers demonstrate this principle clearly. When athletes are overly attached to winning, they experience performance anxiety that degrades their actual performance. The pressure to achieve specific outcomes creates muscle tension, reduces reaction time, and impairs decision-making. Champions learn to compete with what sports psychologists call relaxed concentration, caring deeply about the process while remaining detached from the outcome. The innovation killer. Attachment to predetermined outcomes kills innovation and creative breakthrough. When entrepreneurs are too attached to their original business model, they miss pivot opportunities that could create massive success. The most successful companies emerged when founders remained attached to their mission but detached from their initial strategy. Netflix evolved from DVD mail to streaming by maintaining outcome detachment, while staying process-focused, a decision-making distortion. Outcome attachment creates cognitive biases that lead to poor decisions. When you're desperately attached to a specific result, you engage in confirmation bias, ignoring information that contradicts your desired outcome. You make decisions based on what you want to be true rather than what actually is true. The wealthy make better investment decisions precisely because they can remain emotionally detached from any single outcome. The relationship destruction pattern. Attachment to outcomes destroys relationships and networking opportunities. When you interact with people primarily to achieve specific outcomes, they sense your agenda and become resistant to helping you. The most successful networkers approach relationships with genuine curiosity and detachment from immediate benefits. This paradoxically makes people more willing to assist them, because there's no pressure or manipulation involved. The burnout creation machine. Constant outcome focus creates chronic stress and eventual burnout. When your happiness and self-worth depend entirely on achieving specific results, you create an unsustainable psychological pressure system. Every setback feels like a personal failure. Every delay feels like evidence of inadequacy. The 1% avoid this trap by deriving satisfaction from process execution rather than outcome achievement. The opportunity blindness effect. Attachment to specific outcomes makes you blind to better opportunities that don't match your preconceived plans. When you're laser-focused on achieving outcome C, you miss the signals pointing toward outcome D, which might be far superior. Successful people maintain peripheral vision by staying detached from any single path to success. The negotiation weakness. In business negotiations, attachment to outcomes gives the other party massive leverage over you. When they sense your desperation for a specific result, they can manipulate the terms because they know you'll accept worse conditions rather than walk away. Master negotiators always have alternatives and remain genuinely willing to walk away from any deal. The devastating truth is undeniable. Modern achievement culture has created an attachment epidemic that actually prevents the success it promises to deliver. The Neuroscience of Detached Performance. Let's examine what happens in your brain when you achieve the detached state that creates peak performance, the flow state connection. Neuroscience research shows that peak performance occurs in flow states characterized by reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for self-criticism and outcome monitoring. When athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs enter flow, they become so absorbed in the process that awareness of desired outcomes disappears entirely. This transient hypofrontality allows other brain networks to function optimally without interference from the anxious, outcome-obsessed mind. The default mode network shut down. Brain imaging studies reveal that during peak performance, the default mode network responsible for self-referential thinking and future outcome projection shows dramatically reduced activity. This network normally consumes enormous mental energy through constant outcome analysis and self-judgment. When it quiets down through detachment practices, that energy becomes available for creative problem-solving and enhanced performance. The stress response, optimization, detachment from outcomes changes your physiological stress response from destructive distress to productive eustress. When you're attached to specific results, your body produces cortisol and adrenaline in patterns that impair cognitive function and decision-making. Detached individuals show stress hormone profiles that enhance focus and performance rather than undermining them. The attention network liberation. Outcome attachment fragments attention between present moment execution and future result projection. This divided attention significantly reduces performance quality. Brain scans show that detached performers have unified attention networks focused entirely on current process execution. This concentrated attention creates the conditions for breakthrough performance that attached individuals cannot access. The creativity circuit activation. Detachment activates brain networks associated with divergent thinking and creative insight. When you're not constrained by attachment to specific outcomes, your brain can explore novel solutions and unconventional approaches. Research shows that the most creative breakthroughs occur when individuals release attachment to predetermined solutions and allow unexpected insights to emerge. The decision-making enhancement, neuroscience demonstrates that detachment improves decision-making by reducing emotional interference in rational analysis. The anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for conflict monitoring and emotional regulation, functions more effectively when not overwhelmed by outcome anxiety. This leads to clearer thinking and better strategic choices under pressure. The memory consolidation improvement. Detached learning and performance creates better memory consolidation because the brain isn't wasting resources on anxiety and outcome monitoring. Sleep studies show that individuals who practice detached skill development show improved memory formation during sleep, leading to faster skill acquisition and better retention. The neuroplasticity acceleration. Detachment from immediate outcomes allows for better neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections. When you're not pressuring your brain to achieve specific results immediately, it can undergo the structural changes necessary for long-term skill development and performance improvement. The scientific evidence is overwhelming. Detachment creates optimal brain states for peak performance, while attachment creates suboptimal brain states that impair the very results you're desperately seeking. The Warren Buffett investment detachment. Let's examine how the world's most successful investor achieves extraordinary results through radical outcome detachment. The long-term detachment strategy. Buffett famously says his favorite holding period is forever, demonstrating ultimate detachment from short-term market outcomes, while other investors obsess over daily price movements and quarterly results. Buffett focuses entirely on business fundamentals and long-term value creation. This detachment allows him to make investment decisions based on rational analysis rather than emotional reactions to market volatility. The emotional indifference to losses. Warren Buffett views temporary losses with complete emotional detachment, understanding that market fluctuations are irrelevant to long-term business value. When Berkshire Hathaway's stock drops billions in value during market downturns, Buffett's response is typically to buy more shares. This detachment from short-term outcomes allows him to capitalize on opportunities that terrify attached investors. The outcome-independent analysis. Buffett evaluates investments based on business quality and intrinsic value rather than potential returns or market predictions. He famously doesn't care what the stock market will do next month or next year because he's completely detached from those outcomes. This focus on process over results leads to superior long-term investment performance. The rejection of market timing. Unlike investors who desperately try to time market movements for optimal outcomes, Buffett remains completely detached from market timing attempts. He invests when he finds undervalued businesses, regardless of market conditions or economic predictions. This detachment from market timing has protected him from the mistakes that destroy most investors' returns. The indifference to popular opinion. Warren Buffett maintains complete detachment from market sentiment and popular investment trends. When everyone else is buying technology stocks during bubbles or selling everything during crashes, Buffett's detachment allows him to act rationally rather than emotionally. His famous advice to be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful reflects this emotional detachment from crowd outcomes. The process-focused evaluation. Warren Buffett measures success by the quality of his decision-making process rather than short-term investment outcomes. He understands that good decisions sometimes produce bad results in the short term due to randomness, and that bad decisions sometimes produce good results due to luck. This process detachment allows him to maintain consistent investment discipline, the lifestyle detachment paradox. Despite being worth over $100 billion, Warren Buffett maintains remarkable detachment from lifestyle outcomes that wealth could provide. He lives in the same house he bought in 1958, drives modest cars, and avoids conspicuous consumption. This lifestyle detachment allows him to make investment decisions based purely on financial merit rather than personal desires or image management. The legacy, indifference. Warren Buffett shows surprising detachment from his investment, legacy, and reputation. He regularly admits mistakes, shares his strategies openly, and doesn't seem concerned with being remembered as the greatest investor. This ego detachment allows him to learn continuously and adapt his strategies without being constrained by reputation management concerns. The profound truth emerges. The world's most successful investor achieves superior results through radical detachment from the very outcomes that other investors desperately chase. The athletic peak performance paradox. Now, let's explore how world-class athletes achieve extraordinary results by releasing attachment to winning. The Michael Jordan flow state mastery. Jordan's legendary performances occurred when he entered states of complete detachment from game outcomes in crucial moments. He described feeling like he was watching himself play rather than desperately trying to control results. This detached awareness allowed his trained skills to operate without interference from outcome anxiety or pressure. His greatest shots happened when he was most detached from their importance. The clutch performance psychology, sports. Psychology research shows that clutch performers succeed by treating high-pressure situations with emotional detachment. They focus on executing their practice techniques rather than obsessing over winning or losing. Athletes who choke under pressure are typically those most attached to specific outcomes rather than present-moment execution. The training versus competition detachment. Elite athletes maintain different psychological relationships with training versus competition. In training, they're completely attached to improvement and skill development. In competition, they become detached from results and focus entirely on process execution. This switching ability separates champions from talented athletes who never reach their potential. The failure reframing mechanism. Top athletes maintain detachment from failure outcomes by reframing setbacks as learning opportunities. They view losses as data rather than identity threats. This detachment from negative outcomes allows them to analyze mistakes objectively and improve without being paralyzed by fear of future failures. The team sport detachment balance. In team sports, the best leaders maintain detachment from individual statistics while remaining committed to team process. They don't chase personal achievements that might hurt team performance. This individual outcome detachment paradoxically leads to better individual statistics because they're playing optimally for team success. The injury recovery detachment. Athletes who recover most effectively from injuries maintain detachment from timeline outcomes while focusing intensively on rehabilitation process. Those who desperately attach to return dates often re-injure themselves or return before fully healed. Detachment from recovery timelines allows for complete healing and stronger comebacks. The equipment and superstition detachment elite athletes often display. Remarkable detachment from equipment preferences and superstitious behaviors that amateur athletes obsess over. They understand that confidence comes from preparation and skill rather than external factors. This detachment from performance props makes them more adaptable and resilient under varying conditions. The media and pressure detachment. Champions develop detachment from media attention and external pressure while maintaining focus on performance process. They don't read articles about themselves or get caught up in hype and criticism cycles. This media detachment allows them to maintain consistent performance regardless of external narrative. The athletic evidence is clear. Peak physical performance emerges through psychological detachment from the very outcomes that motivate most competitors to begin training. The Entrepreneurial Detachment Advantage. Let's examine how successful entrepreneurs use detachment to build empires while others fail chasing immediate results. The Jeff Bezos long-term thinking. Bezos built Amazon by maintaining complete detachment from quarterly profit targets, while obsessing over long-term customer value creation. Wall Street criticized Amazon for years because it wasn't profitable, but Bezos remained detached from short-term financial outcomes. This detachment allowed him to make investments in infrastructure and technology that eventually created massive competitive advantages. The pivot detachment necessity. Successful entrepreneurs maintain detachment from their original business models while staying attached to their core mission. Instagram started as a location-based app called Bourbon. Before pivoting to photo sharing, the founders' detachment from their initial concept allowed them to recognize and pursue a better opportunity when it emerged. The customer feedback integration. Entrepreneurs who succeed maintain detachment from their personal preferences while staying completely attached to customer feedback and market signals. They don't take product criticism personally because they're detached from ego outcomes. This detachment allows them to iterate rapidly based on market feedback rather than defending their original ideas. The fundraising detachment strategy. Successful entrepreneurs approach fundraising with detachment from any specific investor or deal. They understand that desperation for particular outcomes weakens their negotiating position and decision-making quality. This detachment allows them to evaluate deals objectively and walk away from unfavorable terms that desperate entrepreneurs accept. The competition indifference. Market-leading entrepreneurs often display surprising detachment from competitive outcomes. They focus on creating unique value rather than directly competing with rivals. This competitive detachment allows them to innovate in blue ocean markets rather than fighting red ocean price wars that destroy profitability for everyone involved. The hiring and firing detachment. Successful entrepreneurs develop detachment from personal relationships when making hiring and firing decisions. They understand that business success requires making personnel decisions based on performance and cultural fit, rather than personal attachment to individuals. This detachment creates stronger teams and better business outcomes. The failure recovery mechanism. Entrepreneurial success often requires multiple failures before breakthrough success. Entrepreneurs who ultimately succeed maintain detachment from individual business failures while learning from each experience. They view failed ventures as education rather than identity threats, allowing them to persist through multiple iterations until finding success. The exit strategy, detachment. The most successful entrepreneurs maintain detachment from ownership outcomes, allowing them to make optimal decisions about selling, merging, or continuing to grow their businesses. They don't let ego attachment to being the founder prevent them from making decisions that maximize value creation and business success. The entrepreneurial pattern is undeniable. Business success emerges through strategic detachment from immediate outcomes while maintaining intense focus on value creation processes. The creative detachment phenomenon. Now let's explore how artists and creators achieve their greatest works through outcome detachment, the artistic flow state access. Creative breakthroughs occur when artists become completely absorbed in the creative process while detached from commercial or critical outcomes. Bob Dylan created his most influential music during periods when he stopped caring about commercial success and focused entirely on artistic expression. This detachment from market outcomes paradoxically led to his greatest commercial successes. The perfectionism release. Many creators achieve their best work when they release attachment to perfection outcomes. The Japanese concept of wabi-sabi celebrates imperfection and impermanence, allowing artists to create freely without being paralyzed by perfectionist outcomes. This detachment from perfect results often produces more authentic and impactful creative works. The audience detachment paradox. Creators who achieve lasting cultural impact often do so by remaining detached from audience expectations, while focusing intensely on authentic self-expression. They don't try to give audiences what they think they want because they're detached from approval outcomes. This authenticity creates deeper audience connections than calculated attempts to please. The commercial detachment strategy. Many successful creators maintain strict separation between creative process and commercial considerations. They create first from artistic vision, then consider commercial applications afterward. This detachment from immediate monetization allows for creative risks that lead to breakthrough innovations that eventually become highly valuable. The criticism, immunity, development. Established creators develop detachment from critical outcomes, understanding that criticism and praise are equally irrelevant to the creative process. They evaluate their work based on internal standards rather than external validation. This critical detachment allows them to maintain creative integrity and continue evolving their artistic voice. The deadline detachment benefits. Paradoxically, creators who maintain detachment from deadline pressure often produce better work faster than those who stress about time constraints. They focus on quality, process execution rather than deadline anxiety, allowing their creative faculties to function optimally under time pressure. The style, evolution, freedom. Creators who remain detached from maintaining consistent style outcomes can evolve and experiment more freely. David Bowie's career demonstrated this principle. His detachment from maintaining any particular artistic identity allowed him to reinvent himself continuously and create influential work across multiple decades and genres. The legacy indifference effect. The most influential creators often show surprising detachment from legacy outcomes. They create for the inherent satisfaction of creative expression rather than historical importance. This legacy detachment allows them to take creative risks that ultimately establish their historical significance. The creative evidence is compelling. Artistic breakthrough and cultural influence emerge through detachment from the very outcomes that motivate most creators to begin their artistic journey. The practical detachment implementation. Here are the specific psychological techniques that allow you to harness detachment for superior results in any field. The process outcome separation technique. Identify the specific processes that lead to your desired outcomes. Then shift 90% of your attention to process excellence, while maintaining only 10% awareness of outcome progress. For example, if you want to build a business, focus intensely on customer value creation, product development, and team building while checking financial results only monthly rather than daily. The multiple option strategy. Always maintain at least 3 viable paths to your goals, reducing attachment to any single outcome. When you have genuine alternatives, you naturally become less desperate about any particular result. This options thinking reduces anxiety and improves decision-making quality under pressure. The identity detachment practice. Separate your sense of self-worth from achievement outcomes by developing identity anchors beyond results. Define yourself by character qualities, relationships, and values rather than accomplishments. This identity detachment allows you to pursue ambitious goals without risking psychological devastation if you don't achieve them immediately. The temporal perspective expansion. Regularly zoom out your time horizon to reduce attachment to immediate outcomes. Ask yourself how much your current concerns will matter in 10 years. This expanded perspective naturally reduces emotional attachment to short-term results, while maintaining motivation for long-term value creation. The scenario planning detachment. Mentally rehearse both success and failure outcomes for important endeavors, accepting both as legitimate possibilities. This scenario planning reduces attachment to specific outcomes by familiarizing your mind with all possibilities. When you're genuinely prepared for any outcome, you can act more boldly and effectively. the meditation and mindfulness integration, regular mindfulness practice, develops. The mental skill of observing thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. This observational capacity is essential for maintaining detachment from outcome, anxiety while staying fully engaged in process execution. The experimentation mindset adoption. Reframe major endeavors as experiments rather than do-or-die missions. Experiments are designed to generate learning regardless of specific results. This experimental framing reduces outcome attachment while increasing willingness to take intelligent risks and learn from feedback. The gratitude and abundance practice. Cultivate genuine appreciation for current circumstances while pursuing improvement. This gratitude practice reduces desperate attachment to future outcomes by increasing satisfaction with present reality. Abundance thinking makes you less attached to any particular opportunity because you trust that others will emerge. The social support detachment. Build relationships and support systems that aren't dependent on your achievement outcomes. Having people who value you regardless of results reduces the pressure to achieve for external validation. This social detachment allows you to pursue goals for intrinsic rather than extrinsic motivation. The regular detachment review, weekly or monthly. Examine areas where you've become overly attached to specific outcomes and consciously release those attachments while maintaining process focus. This regular review prevents attachment from building up to levels that impair performance and decision-making quality. The detachment revolution. Here's the final truth about detachment and success that will either liberate you from outcome obsession or send you deeper into the achievement trap that imprisons most people. The liberation truth. Real success comes through caring deeply about process while remaining detached from outcomes. This paradox allows maximum effort with minimum anxiety, creating optimal conditions for breakthrough performance. The 1% understand that attachment to results actually prevents those results, while detachment from results creates the psychological freedom necessary for extraordinary achievement. The performance optimization reality. Detachment isn't indifference, it's optimized caring. You care intensely about doing excellent work, serving others, and creating value, while remaining detached from whether that excellence produces the specific outcomes you initially imagined. This calibrated caring creates sustainable motivation without the psychological pressure that burns out most high achievers. The control paradox resolution. You gain maximum influence over outcomes by releasing attachment to controlling them. This paradox operates because attachment creates anxiety. Anxiety impairs performance. And poor performance reduces your actual influence over results. Detachment creates calm confidence, which enhances performance and increases your real impact on outcomes. The success sustainability factor. Detachment makes success sustainable because your well-being doesn't depend entirely on external results. You can persist through failures, adapt to changing circumstances, and maintain long-term motivation because your satisfaction comes from process execution rather than outcome achievement. This sustainability gives you enormous advantages over competitors who burn out chasing specific results. Your detachment implementation path. Start by identifying one area where you're overly attached to specific outcomes. Practice shifting your attention from result monitoring to process improvement. Notice how this attention shift affects your stress levels, decision-making quality, and actual performance. Gradually expand this detachment practice to other areas of your life. The relationship, success, integration. Apply detachment principles to relationships by focusing on being a good partner, friend, or family member while releasing attachment to others' responses. This relationship detachment paradoxically creates deeper connections because people sense your authenticity rather than your agenda. The financial detachment application. Approach money-making activities by focusing intensely on value creation while remaining detached from specific income outcomes. This financial detachment allows you to make better business decisions and take appropriate risks without being paralyzed by financial anxiety. The health and fitness detachment. Apply these principles to health by focusing on consistent, healthy behaviors while remaining detached from specific physical outcomes. This health detachment makes wellness practices sustainable because they're intrinsically satisfying rather than dependent on scale numbers or appearance changes. The meta-reality understanding. The people who achieve the most extraordinary results in any field do so by mastering the psychological skill of detached engagement. They care deeply about their work while remaining emotionally detached from whether that work produces the outcomes they initially envisioned. Your choice point. You now understand the secret psychological operating system of peak performers across every field. You can continue chasing outcomes with desperate attachment, burning yourself out while achieving mediocre results. Or you can develop the detachment skills that allow you to perform at your absolute best while maintaining psychological freedom and life satisfaction regardless of external results. Remember this fundamental truth. The 1% don't achieve extraordinary results despite their detachment from outcomes. They achieve extraordinary results because of their detachment from outcomes. This detachment creates the optimal psychological conditions for breakthrough performance that attachment makes impossible. The choice is yours. Continue the exhausting chase for specific outcomes, or master the detachment that creates the psychological freedom to achieve results beyond what you currently imagine possible.